Great. I'm so excited to be here. I love Huntsville Utilities because you keep my air conditioning on. I honestly believe that the two most important inventions in the world were air conditioning and epidurals. It's the only thing that perpetuates the human race at this point in time. So as he told you, my name is Kristin Scroggin, and I am a generational diversity expert. Normally when you've heard this before, you've heard it associated with people that hate millennials. That is not who I am. I'm a huge millennial advocate. They are massive and they are coming. And so if you don't begin to figure out how to get this new generation in and get them incorporated into your workforce very, very soon, and how to retain them, that's your big problem, right? How to retain them, then you're going to have some problems. But for this particular presentation, I was talking to my administrator, who is literally the left-hand side of my brain right now. And I said, well, what do they really want in this particular area? And she said, I think they kind of want to know your story. Like, how did you get here? And I was like, well, but why would they give a rip about that? They don't want to necessarily know how to be new business owners or any of that stuff. And so I started telling her this idea that I had to share with you about the idea of muchness. Have you heard the expression of muchness? Someone's too much. They're too much. They're too overwhelming. They just intimidate everyone around them. They're just too much. And somewhere in my life, I ended up trying to go, wow, I better figure this sucker out, because it's a tightrope, especially being a female in the Deep South, of owning your muchness. And so that's what I'm going to kind of talk to you today. I'm going to give you 5 good tips that will help you get more comfortable with your particular level of muchness. And the main reason I want you to know this and how it links to what I do is because millennials are very comfortable with their muchness. They're totally fine with not conforming to any of the rules that you say. And the main reason why is this: you're not happy. So why would they do the exact same things that you've been doing every single day? We look at them and we say, get a job. What's wrong with you? Get a job. Now, how many of you go home and complain about your job? And have from the time your babies were tiny, right? They're waiting later to get married. Average age 31 across the country right now of millennials getting married. Why is that? We look at our spouses and we're like, oh my God, I hate you. Why did I get married so early? You took the best years of my life, right? You have all that kind of conversation. So they're going, well, wait, I might as well wait on that. I don't want to go through a divorce. I don't want to go through many of the things that we see the millennials doing and owning is very much because we've been telling them as a society for years and years and years, get comfortable with who you are, be fine with who you are as a person, and don't make the same mistakes as we did. And so now we're looking at them and we're like, ugh. You with your dogs instead of children, and in your brain you're like, that was so brilliant. Why do I not have dogs instead of children? Right? And you're refusing to buy houses. Oh my God, I would never have to mow the grass. Right? We're in this world with this weird competition between them, and a lot of it is because their muchness overflows. There is a refusal to conform in this particular generation that just rubs the older generations wrong. So let me introduce you real quick to the generations because you're nosy and you want to know. All right. So here's how we look at our different generations. The oldest generation we currently look at are called the traditionalists. You also hear them called the silent generation. You might have also heard those referred to as the greatest generation. Has anybody ever heard that before? So actually, just in case you're wondering, or any millennials want to slam that in someone's face later on, that's not right. The generation one up from them, the GIs, are technically the greatest generation. They were the ones who originally had that. Now, the main reason why we even care about this particular generation right now when we're talking about the workplace is because these are the people that created the good American worker. All of the rules that we currently conform to in America are because they took them from 40 years of military training and said, let's pick this up and drop it on top of our culture and see how it works. I'll give you a great example. Uniforms. Are uniforms important in the military? Yes. Yes. Tell me why. You need to know who you're supposed to shoot, okay? That would be pretty important in the not dying portion. What's another reason why you would need to know? You would need to have uniforms? You need to present a united front. You look larger when you're all in the same color, right? So that's another part of it. But are all uniforms exactly the same? No. How do we signify power in a world of sameness? Our clothes, right? So they get bars, and they get patches, and they get tassel-y things. There's going to be some military person that's going to be really mad I just called them that, right? They go from pointy hat. Yeah, oh, thank you, Jesus. Pointy hat to flatty hat to slouchy hat, right? And so the idea is that at a moment's notice, I can figure out who I should be following based on their clothing. So they take this idea and they drop it on top of the American workforce, and they create this idea of the white collar uniform, right? And men across our country, now luckily you guys have gotten smart and started to buck this, but across our country right now there are people in Phoenix where it's 120 degrees who are going to get up and put on an undershirt, a long sleeve shirt. What else are they going to put on? Tie, jacket, pants, wool socks, and shoes. It's 120. Y'all, it's 100 and feel like forever in here, right? Many of you come here to just Alabama and you're like, why do I have to wear pants today? Pants. Ugh. Right? And the thing is that we are losing really great employees across the country right now because we're fighting about weird things like clothes. Or you can't have a blue streak in your hair and work for us. Dude, that person sits at a cubicle, okay? They interact with 0 clients. You are talking to them about something that is not in any way reflective of the quality of work that they can produce. And so now you've got this muchness of generations who feels very good about themselves that looks at you and says, yeah, you can't turn your computer on, so I'm going to wear my blue hair, right? And we are so mad, right? It's the muchness that we don't quite know what to do with. The next generation are called baby boomers. Normally when we look at baby boomers, any generation, we look at them in a 20-year span, but our particular research at genWhy Communications looks in the decade, because what we're really examining is what did you grow up with from ages 1 to 15. If we can look at the world that you lived in, what culture looked like, what music looked like, what politics looked like, all of those things, then we can make some assumptions about how the majorities will function. How many of you have ever taken a personality test? Raise your hand before. Even if it's just like one of those little lame ones on Facebook, right? Then you get the answer back. Have you ever been surprised by any of the answers? Most of them, the time you're like, yep, that's pretty much me. Or you'll see something and you'll be like, well, I've never really told anybody that before, but that's far more accurate. Do you know why we can do a personality test on the whole world? It's because you're not that special. You're not that special. If we can take the most complex part of you and categorize you as an ENFP or a DISC or a red or a yellow or a blue or a monkey or a dolphin or a whatever, then you can't be that different. Right? So obviously we can look at what you were raised in and say, okay, that makes sense that would translate to worldview. So what we say is, well, the kids that were raised in the 1950s did not live in the same world that the kids who were raised in the 1960s did. Did not live in the same world that the kids who were raised in the 1970s did. 80s kids, do you feel like you relate to 90s kids? No, I look at them and I'm like, ooh, grunge, ew, brush your hair. Right? So that's what we're looking at here. So the older boomers are the first generation. That's going to be your 64 to 74-year-olds. We also call this generation the people that will never retire. They are literally going to die at their desk. The most recent AARP survey says that over 40% of baby boomers in that generation, right, that part, said that they're going to die at their desk. No intention of leaving. None. Then you've got the flower children right there below who are like, please God, let my money turn around soon so that I can leave here. They're just holding on, right? So the flower children would have been the ones who were raised in the 60s. Now, they didn't go to the Summer of Love, right? The people who went to the Summer of Love in Woodstock were these people. But these were the people with all their posters on the walls and all the peace, love, dope, and right? All of that stuff. The culture would have been more of that hippie and let's all get along, and these were the people raised on the communes. Get where I'm going? Okay, so very different worlds. The next generation down you have our Gen Xers, okay? So Gen X We normally give generations a letter until we begin calling they begin calling themselves by a name, and we still call Gen X Gen X. You know why? Because Gen Xers don't give a rip what you call them. I don't care, write my paycheck, right? Where they're not collectivistic, they don't want to be friends with you, they don't care about your amazing vacation to wherever because they have 7,000 children, right? All of whom are on their nerves. I just want to come in, get my work done, go home to the people I actually chose to be around. The second half of that generation are called the Zen Eels, and that's going to be your 33 to 41-year-olds, right around in there. And it's interesting because this generation feels like they don't identify with the groups up here because they feel like they're more yes men, conformists, and they're more rule breakers in here, but they know they're not like these people. Right? So it's like, well, we'll be Zen Eels. We'll be somewhere in between those two worlds. Very much we see Zen Eels are mostly the latchkey kids. If you're a Zen Eel, you probably remember spending 3 to 4 hours of your life every single day pretty much handling your own business, right? If you ended up getting a bad grade on your spelling test, what did you do? You just shoved it to the bottom of the backpack because nobody was going to have to sign that. And nobody got an email saying your kids stunk at school today, right? None of those things happened. And so you learned to self-manage because you had to figure out how things did not go down crazy every 6 weeks. So you would have gotten up the next day and gone to the teacher and said, can I bang erasers or something and get some extra points? You would find a way to work around things. Then the last generation that we're really going to look at today are millennials, and that's going to be your 23 to 33-year-olds. This is the most hated generation in the country. We've spent an exorbitant amount of time telling these people how much we hate them. And to me, it doesn't even matter if you hate them because they're huge. So let me just give you a little bit of perspective. 46% of the American population is currently under 33. 46%. Okay? Some of you are like, oh God, what are we going to do? Don't worry, because these people are reformers, not conformers. They're going to change the way that you do all of the things that you do right now. You are never going to get this square peg into a round hole. Never going to happen, because the nest is very soft at mom and daddy's house, and they will totally just go live in their basement. Right? And so if you continue to say, no, I'm going to need you to come into work and fake work for the next 8 hours, they're going to be like, no, polite pass. Right? And we're going to be out of humans. What they want is totally different. This generation works to live. They don't live to work. And that's totally different than what the generations were trained to do. Think about this. When you meet a baby boomer, that true boomer, let me go back to their ages real quick. Those true boomers to 64 to 74. We have trained this generation to do a really weird thing. Every time we meet them, they meet a new human. They have been trained to take their germ-infested hand, extend it to another person's germ-infested hand. If you're a really tough, good person, then you push really hard and get all your germs to intermingle. Right? Then there's an exchange. I say my name, you say your name. If I'm a baby boomer, what is my next question always? What do you do for a living? We have trained a whole generation of people that every time they meet a new human, they must verbally affirm their worth and contribution to society. So is that generation ever going to want to be like, well, I used to be something, but no, I'm not? No, they're not. And so you've got this group of people that are fighting against their identity and their job being interwoven. And then on the other side, this group of people who refuses to let those two worlds be interwoven. Do you see how this is causing rub? The last generation we have, I'm even throwing the battery out of this sucker. The last generation we have are called Generation Z. That's basically going to be your 12-year-olds and below. We're not going to spend a lot of time on them, but they are the future. And Generation Z is going to change everything. The cool thing about Generation Z is if you read anything about generational theory, one of the things that they talk about is that every 4th generation we repeat. Something happens that triggers us to completely restart. And we will see that Gen Zs will be very similar to traditionalists. We're already seeing this to some degree. If you've got kids that are 12 and you've got kids that are 16, are you noticing that those kids are completely different? Wow, that's amazing, right? And it's because who raises who? So who raised the millennials? The hippies did. Okay? So think about this. Do any of you have children? Raise your hand if you have children. You want your kids to have all the things you wish you would have had as a kid you didn't get to have. All right? Not in a spoiled way, but things that you consider to be important you didn't get to have. So if you never got to travel, my guess is your kids have done a lot of traveling. Right? Or if all of your pants came from Sears when you were growing up, then chances are you're letting your kids buy those Lucky Brands or whatever it is. So let's think about this. What did the flower children want? Well, they wanted pot. Do their kids have that? Yes, they do. Right? They wanted to travel around to different music festivals. Have you talked to a millennial lately? They will spend scads of money to be able to go to Bonnaroo and camp out. These are humans that could not go 24 hours without their cell phone, that will totally sleep on the ground and pee in a bucket to be able to hear a thing that you've never heard of, right? It's because we do what our parents trained us to do. Everybody with me on that? So I had a really interesting situation because I am a Zen Eel and my parents were the baby boomers. And this group of people were huge, 80 million births in this particular generation. They outnumbered their parents 3 to 1. And so what that did was foster this extreme sense of competition. They were taught you must be more, you must be better, work harder, longer, smarter, faster, be present where people can see you. If your boss tells you to do something, you do it because you are disposable, right? And so we have that group of people. And so what do they do to their kids? They obviously push that same sort of idea of competition. My kid has to be the best. So I was a music theater kid. I'm sure you're shocked at that. I was a music theater kid. I still could not kick a kickball if my life depended on it. I was never ever going to do any kind of cool sports things. My brother is on the Olympic handball team, so we kind of live in different worlds. But everything was about music theater. Did you get the lead? Are you the star? Right? Are people going to be talking about you? And that seems to be a celebration of muchness. Do you agree with that? The more much you are, the more people will be attracted to you and want to see you on stage. Agree with me on that? However, I was also raised in the Deep South. This is not a fake picture, people. I'm from Tuscaloosa, and they have a thing called Tuscaloosa bells. And you can imagine that I was not good at that. My muchness was a little overwhelming for the pink taffeta. And so in protest, about 2 days before this picture was taken, I went and cut off all my hair. And that was considered to be too much, right? Too much. And I would hear things all through growing up about my muchness. Kristin, you're too loud. Anybody in here gets told they're too loud? Anybody gets told you talk too much? You're too opinionated. Yeah. I look at people and say, I'm sorry, so what you're telling me is that I shouldn't have an opinion on things, so basically I should be stupid. You'll want me to be around more if I have no opinions? That's not what you want. You're too messy. It's very common for me to talk to people who consider themselves to be too much, and they're constantly, you're not structured, you're not organized. No, I'm creative. The muchness is why you want to hang around with me. You're too overwhelming. You're too confident. And here's the thing. In the South, I would hear this stuff all the time. I would have people say, you know what, you're going to have to tap that down or you'll never get married. And I was like, of course, just me being me, I was like, I don't need no man, right? That's cool with me. And everything in culture said, oh, you must be a feminist. Right? I have to give you a negatized label now because you're perfectly fine with being who you are. Right? And so I learned that at some point in time, I should be afraid of my muchness. I should feel ashamed of my muchness. Right? Anybody ever go? So for people that are too much, you are used to people insulting you with telling you things like you're too much, you're too loud, you talk too much. That's how they hurt your feelings, which is crazy because it's literally a core value of you. You can't do anything about it, right? And so they're basically saying, the part that you are probably the most proud of, everyone else finds annoying. And that hurts a little bit. So you begin to over self-monitor. So, for example, I can sit up here and do this with you guys all day, every day. Talk to me, a group of people, I want a sea of faces. If I have to sit down and have dinner with you, I will almost throw up right before I go in. Because I'm so acutely aware of my muchness. I don't want to overwhelm anyone. What if I'm too loud? What if I ask too many questions? What if I say the wrong thing and blow the steal? And here's what's so interesting. I wonder if people who don't have muchness ever even worry about any of those things. But then I started to realize this. Everybody has muchness. You all have different kinds of muchness, things that you are sensitive to, that at some point in time in your life, someone has told you you should be ashamed of. You shouldn't like that, right? And that's something that I want to talk to you about today, because here's the bottom line. The only reason you brought me here today is because of my muchness. You did not want to hear another person get up and give another horrible, boring presentation that made you want to cry. You didn't want that. You wanted somebody that at god-awful 7:30 in the morning would wake you up and give you some sort of inspiration. You wanted the muchness. And what's so funny is when you're young, you're afraid of the muchness. It's being tapped down. And then as you get older, the only reason anyone wants you around is because of your muchness. Everybody with me on this? So there's a few things I want to kind of impress on you to go for. The first thing and to embrace your muchness is this. Number one, embrace your weird. These are my children. We are weird, okay? I'm a foster parent in Madison County. I've got kids of multiple races, as you can tell. When I walk into a restaurant, I'm acutely aware of the fact that people are looking at us. It's not because I think that I've never had, in all my years, 3 years, I've never had anyone say anything negative or assaulting or anything like that. But you can see that look in their face where they're like, huh, what? Okay, adoption, right? That's the first thing, because, you know, my boys they're dark too. They're dark skinned on top of it all. And so when we go places, people are like, huh. And so they'll start asking questions. Right? What country did you adopt them from? And I've gotten to know where I say, I got them from Matadosina County. Because people need to be able to have the cognitive dissonance, right? I'm like, it's not, they're literally up the road. Like, I'm pretty sure their birth parents live on my side of town, right? And it's really, really difficult for people to understand. So at some point in time, I had to realize that if I didn't get comfortable with that it was going to make my children uncomfortable with that. Very early, when he first started coming to me, I said, you just need to be clear. People are always going to be confused by this. Your teacher is always going to assume that when a teacher-parent conference comes in, that the person walking in their door will be black. They're always going to assume that. And there's nothing wrong with their assumption of that, right? And there's nothing wrong with the fact that we don't fit the assumption. We can be totally fine with being who we are. Yeah, and the muchness. We can embrace, because we're muchness. We're a lot. We're in the deep South, right? That's a lot. It's a lot. Number one, I've got 4 kids, and people are like, 4 children. Bless you. And I'm like, I'm mostly insane, but it's nothing like that. We learned early on what we were designed to do. I totally believe that if each person spent time figuring out what they were made to do, and they just went after the passion that they were made to do, that we would have a lot of problems eliminated. You don't need to solve the world's problems. Listen, I'm never going to remember my green bags, Publix. Never. Stop talking to me about it. I'm never going to remember. If I see a cute little dog, I'm not going to the shelter. I'm going to go get that dog, right? Because that's not my thing. My thing is this. Does that make sense? And that makes me weird, but it makes me weird in a way that allows me to solve a problem or complete an issue. And there's something inside of you that just resonates with you, that other people might look at and say, that's weird. Why would you want to take strangers into your house? Why would you want to foster kittens? Like, you're a crazy cat lady, right? And you're like, yes, I am, right? Your weirdness is part of your muchness, and that's totally okay. Here's an example of my muchness. I'm going to dress up for Halloween, by God. Here I am as Cruella de Vil, and I was super scary, and it was fun, and I owned it all day, every day. And that's fine. My kids loved the weirdness. They'll remember the weirdness. They won't remember the same. Does that make sense? The next thing I'll give you is this. You've got to stop comparing yourself to other people. You are not the same. You're not the same. You don't have to be the same. Oh my God, what if we were all the same? Ugh. So I've been a professor at the University of Alabama in Huntsville for about 12 years. And I have a lot of engineers that come through my class, and they're very much the same. And they're so much okay with their sameness that they shun the non-engineer sameness, right? But then when I sit down and talk to them, I say, well, what do you do for fun? Oh, well, we have LAN parties. Yeah, I think that's nerd stuff. And they're like, really? Yeah. Well, what else do you do? I play Dungeons and Dragons. What? Like in a basement? Because again, I'm going from the 80s, right? And they're like, yeah, doesn't every, right? That's the thing, is that you don't know what you don't know. How many of you have a sibling that you look at and you're like, how did you get here? See, over half the room is like, you look at them and you're like, were we not raised in the same parents, by the same house, in the same church, in the same neighborhood, with the same schools? Why are you so weird, right? And it's because we're all filtering things through our different worldviews, and that's important. That's when you hear people talk about diversity, that means sharing that worldview with the people around you. It's not enough to just have people of different colors and different ethnicities all sitting at the same table. Do they have the opportunity to share their perspective? Right? That's what the word of the 2018 that I hear all the time right now is inclusion. It's the word of the year, right? It's the idea of, I don't want to just be asked to go to the dance. I want to be asked to dance. There's a difference between those two worlds. But you and I don't have to be the same, and you and I don't have to be the same, and you and I don't have to be the same, because when we sit down and do problem solving, we'll all bring our own worldviews, and now we can actually solve problems, right? So stop comparing yourself to other people. Another just cool thing, there's a lot of women in the room, so I'm going to hit you with this. There's a thing called Soma Typing. If you go look this up later on, you'll be fascinated by it. Soma Typing says that if you have a certain body type, we presume that you have certain personality characteristics. So people that are very long and lean and can't hold a lot of weight, right? We have a tendency to think that they're neurotic, they're high strung, and watch any TV show. When you have someone that is very long and lean, they will be the Sheldon, right? If you've ever seen any of that, it'll always be that style of person. Then you have, and that person is called ectomorphic, okay? On the other side of that, you have what I am, endomorphic. We are apples with really great legs, right? We hold all of our weight here, right in the middle. And are there characteristics that as an overweight person you're supposed to have? Yes, we assume you should be funny, you should be laid back, you should be able to roll with the punches. Now, what happens when you run into somebody that doesn't have those characteristics that go along with their body type? You're kind of irritated, right? You're like, whoa, 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 whoa. And so what you'll call attention to it. That tall, skinny guy, he's so laid back. Oh man, it's because your brain automatically does this. So I'm getting somewhere. In the middle is a thing called mesomorphic. Those are going to be the people, the men who are shaped like triangles, right? And the women who are shaped like hourglasses. So here's what's so interesting. Only 20% of the population are mesomorphs, the ones in the middle. Everyone else is naturally body typed to be on the other two sides. But we spend all our time and energy trying to get to where? The middle, the middle. Now, why would advertising really need you to be focused on in the middle? Because if I'm not okay with embracing who I am, then I will continually buy more junk to get me closer to what the ideal and basically unattainable is. Does that make sense? So this is the thing. If you can start to embrace I want to have a healthy body, right? I want to make sure my body functions the way that it's supposed to. But I'm not worried about trying to be a size 2 ever again. That's never going to happen. I think I was a size 2 when I was literally in kindergarten, okay? So probably not going back to that. And if I can stop comparing myself to people that have that natural proclivity, right? Natural genes, or they have time to be able to spend on that level of exercise or that level of food prep, it doesn't make me a bad person. It doesn't make me too much just because I don't conform to every single one of those rules. Does that make sense? The next thing I want you to realize is this, is number 3, is realize you're not done growing. You will be growing as a human being until you die. That is never going to stop, right? There will be new people that will come into your life that will teach you something. They'll be there for a season and then they'll walk out. And you have to be smart enough to let those people go, right? But the bottom line is you're not done growing. I have a lot of friends who are right in that time of where they're trying to figure out whether they need to get a divorce or not. And one of the things I commonly hear is, well, this is just not the person I married. Well, duh, the person that you married was 25. You're 45. Obviously, you're not the same people. It's, are you willing to grow and adapt to the people around you, right? And realizing that you're still growing. There are things that you could continue to work on. I could continue to work on being too loud, but I've decided to embrace being too loud. Because here's the thing about loud people. We might get on your nerves, but you're darn well gonna listen to us. Quiet people, I just ignore you all day. You say anything, I'm not afraid of you. All right? Loud people, own it, right? It's that sort of idea. I could change it. I could decide I'm going to work on this characteristic and help myself in this area, or I could choose to embrace. This is part of who I am, and if you want to be cool with me, then you'll be okay with this part of my life too. Realize you're not done growing. The number 4 one thing I'll tell you is this: surround yourself with people who are different than you. Spend an exorbitant amount of time being intentional with surrounding yourself with people who are different. It was especially when I had children of different ethnicities and backgrounds that were coming into my house, it became so vitally important that I had those friends that had similar cultural backgrounds, because then I had touch points, right? And I had already built healthy relationships with them, so I could go back to that person and say, yeah, I can't do this hair thing. Holy, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing. And them say, okay, cool, calm down, I can help you. But it was only because I had sought out people who were different than me before and pre-built the relationships that I could have those kinds of exchanges. Do not surround yourself with people who are like you. That is how you will get very stuck in your own ways. That is how you will ignore that there are other people who have different needs and different backgrounds and different concepts. I'm telling you, I did not understand poverty until I had foster children. Didn't understand it. I totally thought that anybody that had a drug problem, if they just loved their people enough, they could pull out of it. They can't, man. It's so much more than that. And I would look at people and I'd say, you know, everyone gets the same level of education. If you just try hard enough, you'll magically get out of it. And then I look at these cycles of families that are in this endless loop. You don't know what you don't know, and until someone else introduces you to it, you don't know it. And here's the bottom line: you're not going to be a very interesting person if you don't know other people's perspectives. In order to be known, you must first seek to know others, right? And so surround yourself with people who are different than you. This is my friend Erin. She and I are totally different in the same way, but we have both decided to embrace our mom bossiness, right? This is who we are. We are amazing. We like what we do. We don't care if you're intimidated by the fact that we have ideas and concepts and growing, but her worldview is so different than mine. We're on different lens of the political spectrum. We're in different backgrounds. She has military in her life. I don't have any military in our life. There's all kinds of things that make us very different. And she has become extremely important in me understanding ways that I could come off to other people, how my muchness might actually be hurtful, right? And that's one of the things that you'll have to learn. The last thing I'll tell you is this: you got to give yourself a break. People, you are too hard on yourselves. You spend so much time picking apart things that most people never, ever, ever see. And social media has made this so much worse for you. Because you get online and what do you see? Especially right now, it's June and July, is everyone you know on vacation. And they're all in a nicer condo with more beautiful kids, with more delicious food that they're eating out on. I can shape my social media to show you that all things are rainbow and sunshine and gloriousness, and it's just not true. It's just not true. But the problem is that if I'm comparing myself to people and I'm not giving myself a break and I'm in a place where I feel like I constantly am in competition with everyone around me, then I will feel that social pressure to do more of that kind of stuff, right? I might not really be a beach person at all, but all my friends are going to the beach. They all have all kinds of pictures, so I'm going to have to show them that I can do those same sort of things. Give yourself a break. It's okay for you to be exactly who you are. It's okay for you to decide what you want to spend your money on. I'll give you a great example. We have an okay-sized house, not huge, not little. In Gen X world, that's probably offensive because I should be striving to get to the next biggest house, right? And another car and another, right, whatever it is. But we've decided that we're just going to spend money on vacations. So I have a daughter who is 11, and on her birthday falls on fall break every single year. It's always on October 5th. And if you don't know anything about travel, you can get ridiculous deals to travel overseas during October, November, December, like super, super cheap. And so this past year, we went to Paris on her birthday. And people were losing their minds. They were literally furious at this 11-year-old for being able to go to Paris for her 11th birthday. It was just too much. It's too much for any one kid to have. So it's funny because I sat down with one of the mothers later on and we were just talking and I said, you know what's really funny is actually we paid half for our Paris vacation that you did for your Disney week. So perspective, boo, right? We have just decided that that's one of the things that we're going to spend our money on. I don't care whether my kids have cool tennis shoes, right? I don't care about what neighborhood I live in. I care about do my people see the world? Can I expose them to the very global world that they're all going to live in so that they're not freaked out when some boss later on says, yeah, I'm going to need you to move to Germany for a year, that they're like, duh, right? You know, is that right in German? No, that was Russian. Anyway, so you get the gist, right? That there are things that we need to give ourselves in a break. An 11-year-old shouldn't feel ashamed of the fact that she's getting to do something incredible that will change her worldview, but because of our muchness theory, it's really very difficult. So my challenge to you today would be to find the areas of your muchness, decide what needs growth, and what is something that you're going to just embrace. What's going to be something that you're just going to get okay with. And then I would encourage you to give yourself a break. You're not Superwoman. You don't belong on Pinterest. You're probably never going to get that blog off the ground. All right? And that's okay. Your kid doesn't have to look perfect every single day. Your job is not going to be wonderful all day, every day. You don't have to pretend like you're happy all day, every day. You can occasionally hate everyone. Now, as long as you do nothing with that, it's all right. Okay? The bottom line is you are not too much. You are just enough of you. You're just enough of you. Find out how your you is supposed to be used to do good. Find your purpose, embrace the weird parts of you, and go be awesome. Go be too much.